Yo, hold on. Um, what's good, boys? I know this ain't ordinary, but right now I don't have my headphones and my camera, so yeah, just bear with me for now. So that's what happens if you to your brain if you smoke weed for 30 days. Be real. If you smoke weed for 30 days, I think honest to God, your shit just might you might just end up being retarded. I ain't gonna lie. Like straight up stupid, like forgetting everything. I don't know. I don't smoke weed, and I probably won't do that shit for 30 days. I've had edibles before. Those don't really feel that good. When niggas say, "Oh, hey man, hey man, it makes you feel good, bro. It makes you," brother. That shit is fucking painful. It's not painful, but it's like I have a fucking headache. I feel like this entire part of my face is being like I don't, you know what I mean, bro.
Can smoking the devil's lettuce every day for a month be bad for you? What happens to your body exactly? Or more importantly, what happens to your mind? And what if you suddenly quit? Will you pay for your month of indulgence with nasty withdrawal? Humanity has come a long way where weed is concerned. It's now legal for recreational use in 25 states, plus 3 territories and Washington, D.C. A further 7 states in the U.S. have decriminalized it, meaning it's not legal, but you won't be prosecuted for taking it. This trend toward general acceptance seems to align with the general public's opinion. Surveys show that 88%.
Not legal, but you won't be prosecuted for it. What the fuck does that even mean, bro? Like what? That's the first time I've ever heard that.
Percent of Americans think it should be legal for recreational and medical use. The world is changing. Seems like it won't be long until weed is legal or decriminalized in many more countries. That's because word's on the street that weed isn't half as bad as those Puritans from the past made it out to be. Even some of the strictest nations where drugs are concerned have done an about turn on weed. We imagine a few of our viewers have been to Thailand in the last year and seen what has been nothing short of a weed explosion. And this is a country that not long ago could have you put behind some very nasty-looking bars for having a few grams of weed on your person. Entire streets these days in the tourist areas look like a fantasy dream of deceased Bob Marley. Weed shops are everywhere. Feels like walking through a weed wonderland. The BBC called it just that, interviewing a guy who said the country is now Amsterdam on steroids, but despite it being a veritable cash cow, there have been people, including doctors, calling for a re-ban. The government doesn't look like it'll change its stance. Surely, if this is happening in conservative Thailand,
Nah, once shit if it gets tampered with, or this shit is being so like on some drug shit, then yeah, it's raps. No cap, no kizzy, it's raps. But I think for right now we're cooling. But it's all a waiting game at the end of the day, type shit.
weed can't be that bad for you. That's what we'll try to figure out in this video. Let's start day 1 by exploring some myths about this once demonized drug. One theory states that weed can make you mad. Mad as in the angry type of mad. And maybe even on your first day of smoking, making it extremely relevant for our 30-day journey. There have already been news articles in Thailand saying someone viciously attacked someone else and the now legal weed was blamed. Some of those stories reminded people of long-gone era where misinformation about drugs came out of almost every politician's mouth. In the past, we humans absolutely got weed, aka ganja, pot, grass, herb, all wrong. You only need to look at anti-weed propaganda films like 1937's Reefer Madness, which told us that weed had its roots in hell. And if it doesn't turn you into a killer or compel you to sleep with the first person you see walking down the street, it'll render you in a state of hopeless insanity. Here's a line from a doctor in the movie explaining what happened to some kid who got himself addicted to weed. Yes, I remember, just a young boy under the influence of the drug. He killed his entire family with an axe. This line is the definition of nonsense. You don't even need the numerous scientific studies to tell you weed doesn't usually make people violent. Unlike the very legal alcohol. As the American comedian Bill Hicks once joked, pot is a better drug than alcohol, I'll prove it to you. You're at a ball game or a concert and someone's really violent and aggressive and obnoxious. Are they drunk or are they smoking pot? That's hardly scientific, it's just an observation, but the people of the world would very likely agree the answer is without a doubt alcohol. With weed, there have been some studies that have suggested it could cause antisocial behavior, One such study published by the National Institutes of Health told us a meta-analysis found the risk of perpetrating violence was more than twice as high for young adults who used marijuana. Another piece of nonsense we like is when President Ronald Reagan during his War on Drugs days said, "I now have absolute proof that smoking even one marijuana cigarette is equal in brain damage to being on Bikini Island during an H-bomb blast." He was speaking at
Nigga, just to compare the fucking, I think, a nuclear bomb to uh, uh, uh weed. Ah, man. See, sometimes you gotta love the old heads, man. You gotta love the old heads, man.
absolute balderdash, but that doesn't mean weed is completely safe where the
Oh,
well-being
it's
of your
nothing
body or your
safe,
mind is
bro.
concerned.
Like, fuck
No
it.
drugs are 100% safe. Before we get into the
It's also
effects of
true.
weed smoking after day one, there's something we need to tell you about weed in general. The fact that it just isn't for everyone. And we mean that some people might have a very bad reaction the first time they take it, especially if they do as many impressionable teenagers do, and get blasted before they've checked if they have a vehicle, aka a brain, suitable for space travel. You need to know that weed is a psychoactive drug. It affects your nervous system. It can alter how you think, what you see, and what you hear.
And when you take this shit, bro, and you're just chilling, and you know you have like, you know, your saliva when you see shit, bro, it just feels so bad, bro. Like, it makes you want to. Me sometimes makes you want to spit constantly. Stomach hurting like a mug, man. Head killing me. Like, fuck that, bro. I'm good, bro. Don't get me wrong, this shit fire for a little bit. If you playing a video game, bro, you're never missing. I swear to God, I was playing fucking MW2, you know the Modern Warfare 2. I was fried. I should have taken like 10 milligrams, bro. My nigga, I'm telling you, bro, this shit, I wasn't missing for nothing at all. Like most of the times, I'd be nervous, shit in my pants, sweating like crazy, toes curling, hands damn near by the controller at my hands. Like, nah, bro. I was relaxed, chilling, hitting all my shots, killing everybody. I had shit in it, unfortunately. Still do to this day, because that was like only a year ago in this place. But it was like, bro, I wasn't. I'm telling you, bro. You have energy drinks or you have weed, bro, or I'm sorry, gas, edibles, whatever the fuck. You will not miss. I promise you. I promise you. You can be slow sense, fast sense. You won't miss.
It gets you high. How high is up to your tolerance, if you have a tolerance, and your unique body, and of course what kind of weed you've been smoking. It's well known that weed today is often about 10 times stronger than weed from half a century ago. Some people seem very sensitive to weed, and being high can almost be like tripping on psychedelics. Not always very pleasant, yet others might feel a sense of well-being, but not be all that out there. We all react differently. Start slow is our advice. There are 483 known compounds in weed, but the ones most talked about are tetrahydrocannabinol, or THC, the one that's mainly responsible for the high, and cannabidiol, CBD, the one that's presently being sold as a possible antidote to anxiety and depression or a cure for pain and various diseases. We'll get back to that topic soon. Weed might not be for you at all, and we mean for some people, they're just too big of a risk. There is evidence that it can cause psychotic experiences, especially if you've had them before or they run in your family. It's rare, but be aware. There are plenty of scientific papers that tell us cannabis is a known risk factor for schizophrenia. Still, according to one such paper published by the National Institutes of Health, biological
I'm not gonna lie, you will forget a lot of shit when you take this. Like every split second, you'll forget something. And trust me, bro. Like, yo, you will forget, bro. You'll get up to go do something. You don't even remember what the fuck you were doing. Then you'll remember that, and then you'll forget that. It's like a back and forth type shit.
events and a valid model of neurobiological mechanisms are lacking. That means they weren't able to figure out what was going on in the brain when something went wrong. They couldn't find the actual cause. Nonetheless, it is well established that people on weed may become deluded, paranoid. If you smoke weed and you begin to think that all your friends are CIA agents who are trying to control your mind, or the 21st century version of MK Ultra, you might be one of those people who should stay away from weed. We don't think the CIA does such things anymore. For some, the craziness is fleeting. They might find it after a particularly large dose, but they tell their friends, "Look, my thumbs have gone weird. My heart is beating like a bleeped up clock." That's from an old cult classic comedy movie with some really funny weed parts. It's a film, but the writer obviously had experience with the drug in question. Put your hand up if you've ever sneakily felt your heartbeat on weed because you imagine something ain't right. It can cause anxiety, and with some people, severe anxiety, leading to outlandish thoughts about something that's gone wrong with their body. Again, we know some of you are now nodding your head. Studies have shown long-term use of weed may increase the risk of heart issues, but it doesn't cause your heart to beat fast enough that it fails after just one smoke. That's the anxiety talking. Others say weed makes them feel disconnected from themselves, disassociative. They may hallucinate or just have some really disturbing, otherworldly thoughts. And we're not trying to scare you, but this stuff you ought to know. It's hard to understand how many people in a population will have a negative weed experience. In a Danish study consisting of thousands of people, the researchers said 30% of participants who'd had a psychotic experience in their lives would likely not have had one had they not ever ingested weed. Still, many people will not have such negative psychological reactions, especially when they take it in small amounts. Millions will consume it every day and they're A-OK. A World Drug Report in 2013 said 180 million people had tried weed in the last year. It's thought that there are about 219 million weed smokers on the planet right now. The CDC says about 11.5% of Americans smoke it or did so in 2021. In England and Wales, a study said 13.5% of 16 to 24-year-olds had it in the past year. 40% of those people said they'd used it at least once a month. Most of them would have been fine, but some of them would have had negative experiences. Another study we found said people who smoke weed are 3 times more likely to believe people will harm them than people who don't smoke weed. Then there was that study that tested people with an intravenous 1.5 milligram dose of either THC or a placebo, meaning nothing. The researchers found that the weed consumers were 30% more likely to have some amount of paranoia. Other negative experiences included lowered mood.
That's facts. I'm not gonna lie to you. When you take it, bro, you're gonna feel like you're gonna, depending on who you are, bro, you're gonna be like, you're gonna be like that, bro. But if you're like chill about it, you're like you either just gonna say, fuck, I'm gonna try it. You will be a little bit nervous at first, but me, I'm not gonna lie. One thing I learned, bro, if I can tell myself to relax, I'll relax. I ain't gonna lie to you. That's not, it doesn't work. It doesn't work like 100% of the times, but it works, bro. Trust. Every time I wish I'll do shit I normally would never do. But the only reason why I do it is because she's gonna relax.
Worry, anxiety, and negative thoughts about themselves. So with all that in mind, you should start slowly with weed and see how it goes. Let's say you like it and you want to smoke it again. Day 1 of weed is over, it's now day 2. You may have noticed some forgetfulness, especially around the time you smoked the weed yesterday. Unlike those times you were wasted on alcohol, you haven't woken up in a strange bed with a penis scrawled on your cheek, but your memory is a bit fuzzy from around the time you smoked. There's a reason for that. Cannabis affects something called the hippocampus. It's a part of the brain that helps you process new memories. Studies on rats that were given regular doses of weed showed they struggled to remember how to do various tasks. There was even long-term impairment, but these rats were stoned throughout their entire young lives. You're not a rat, and you haven't been smoking weed for years on end, but this is something to bear in mind. Studies have shown that regular weed use in young people can affect how the hippocampus develops. But such cognitive impairment, like many things related to weed, needs to be studied more. Your month on weed almost certainly isn't going to change the structure of your brain in any significant way for the rest of your life. You may have had some short-term memory problems when you got stoned again today, but you don't need to sweat the long-term stuff yet. In fact, some studies have shown regular weed use may stave off neurodegenerative diseases that affect memory, like Alzheimer's and Huntington's chorea. Let's say you've now been hitting the weed for 5 days on the trot. Sure, you have some patchy memory days, but in general, since you're the kind of person who likes weed and has positive experiences with it, you actually feel fine. You haven't really experienced any changes. We mean the middle-aged, long-haired guy that's been selling it to you, the one who always is wearing that old Ween t-shirt, says he's been smoking it every day since 1997. He says he's fine. Well, he does seem to have some motivation issues. Many people do, which is why Afro Man wrote the song lyrics, "I was gonna clean my room until I got high. I was gonna get up and find the broom, but then I got high. My room is still messed up, and I know why." Again, that's not scientific, but many people have said such things. We'll come back to that topic of motivation soon. Another thing you noticed is you put on a few pounds. As the rapper Master P said in the song, "You the captain, I'm the crunch, you got that dinner, I got the lunch. Hit the weed, pass the blunt, your eyes red, and you got the munchies." A paper in the journal Nature, again based on stoned rodents, said the THC in weed can cause changes in the brain's hypothalamus, tricking the rat into thinking it's hungry. There's evidence that smoking weed can lead to an increase in the production of the hormone ghrelin, which can create hunger pangs. Not only that, but weed leads to increases in the feel-good chemical dopamine, so the experience of eating that food could feel much more satisfying than normal. If you're a weed smoker, we don't need to tell you this. You've all raided the fridge at 2 a.m. like a ravenous zombie after getting the weed munchies. Still, while you've put on a few pounds, studies have shown that regular weed use does not generally lead to weight gain in the long run. In fact, some studies show pot smokers might have a lower body mass index on average. We should just add here that there are so many studies out there and so many are contradictory that figuring out the mystery of weed is going to take a lot more work. You could literally spend all day Googling all the good stuff about weed and think it was the answer to all the world's problems. Then you could do the opposite and soon become scared out of your wits. It's always best to analyze various studies or at least know they exist. Let's also remember here that people wouldn't do it if it didn't make them feel good. As the book and the movie Trainspotting said about an illegal substance, not weed, but it works for all substances, people think it's all about misery and desperation and death and all that, which is not to be ignored, but what they forget is the pleasure of it. Otherwise, we wouldn't do it. Sticking with the positives, for many people suffering from chronic pain, weed has been a godsend. You yourself may have had neuropathic pain in your back for years, but now you've been smoking weed for a few days and there's been a considerable reversal of pain levels. The reason for this is that a person's peripheral nerves, the nerves that detect pain sensations, contain a lot of receptors for cannabinoids. Scientists now think that cannabinoids might block peripheral nerve pain. Studies have shown this to be true in animals. Still, as you might know, the mind plays a big part when it comes to pain. You may have heard of the nocebo effect, where people feel pain when they shouldn't be feeling pain. A good example is the case of the guy who went to the ER with a long nail stuck through his work boot. He was screaming and telling doctors that even the opiates they were giving him weren't working. When they finally sawed off his boot, they saw the nail had actually gone through the gap between his toes. Embarrassed, the guy was suddenly pain-free. But for him, he really did feel that pain. And with cannabis, there's now good evidence that it can act as a placebo where pain is concerned. Studies have shown that when people with pain took a placebo that looked, smelled, and tasted like weed, they felt a reduction in their pain levels. We've known for decades that when someone takes a placebo for pain,
Bro, I gotta do research on placebos. Your homework on placebos. I'm playing. But like, yeah. I've never, first one I've first heard of it, I never even knew what it was. Apparently it's something to make you believe that this works, but in actuality it doesn't work. It's just it's just like some dead shit or whatever. I don't know, I'm doing research, but it's interesting to me.
certain neurotransmitters are released in the brain, including what are called endocannabinoids. But there have also been some negative reactions, especially now that you've been smoking it for 10 days. You seem to be less motivated. Studies have shown that after weed consumption, people can indeed be less motivated. One study showed that participants who've had weed were less likely to press buttons for a reward. Still, this study showed that if people waited 12 hours, their motivation returned. Now you've realized that taking a long break from weed smoking is sometimes good. Long-term smokers of weed don't need studies to tell them overdoing it can make them a bit sluggish and not exactly in the mood to get things done as fast as possible. It's the same with reaction times. You've noticed that when you're stoned, you might float like a butterfly, but not exactly sting like a bee. Researchers have said that this might have something to do with the brain's thalamus corticostriatal circuit. The Nature Journal tells
I'm sorry to pause, but I hate niggas who start dancing when they eat. I know I just someone did it, but that shit is so like, what the fuck is you doing, nigga? Like, come on, I hate people who dance when they eat. My brother used to do that shit when I was a kid, bro. It used to piss me off. I don't know why, but like, it just pisses me off to this day. Hey, man, I'm not gonna hold you. It's like I'm looking at
controls movement
like,
execution.
You know the Doug ass video. You disgust me, dude.
Habit formation, and reward. Receptors in here bind with the THC, and this can slow down someone's perception of time. In a 2012 study, scientists said 70% of participants who smoked weed experienced what seemed like a stretching of time. Time moved more slowly, and this might have something to do with slowed reaction times. Studies have showed that performance can be affected. These are controversial studies given that people smoke weed and drive cars or operate planes or machinery. One study we found showed that when users had to perform a task after ingesting weed for 4 days, they not only had slower reaction times on the first day of the experiment, it seems that they got used to it. Another study, a meta-study, concluded that some lower-quality studies have reported next-day effects of THC on cognitive function and safety-sensitive tasks. However, most studies, including some higher quality, have found no such effect. But you've been taking it easy, so your reaction time's not much different from usual, certainly after 12 hours from your last smoke. You also seemed much more prone to slowness on the first few days that you did smoke. This seemed to be getting better the more days you smoke. Like most people in the world, the effects seem to completely go away between 2 and 4 hours, but another thing you realized is that after 12 days on this stuff, you started to get more anxious. This is because part of your brain called the amygdala is stimulated by weed. The studies on anxiety and cannabis use can be very contradictory. For some people, weed helped with their anxiety, but for others, they experienced an increase in anxiety after long-term use, although the causal links were not clear. In a 2017 survey consisting of 9,000 American regular weed smokers, 70% said it gave them noticeable health benefits, with almost 50% saying it relieved anxiety. Others said it helped with their PTSD. Some said it had a positive effect on their phobias, and some said it helped with sleep and social anxiety. But others said it caused anxiety, especially when they consumed weed with high levels of THC. It's a bit of an each to their own situation. In your case, the anxiety has only been fleeting, and you only experienced it when you had consumed a lot more weed than usual. It's around this point in your 30-day experience that you notice the effect weed is having on your lungs. This is mostly a silent effect, although admittedly just the other day you coughed up something that made you think of the movie Ghostbusters. Just be aware that chronic weed smoking can increase phlegm production. You've been smoking for quite a while now, and this might have affected the cell linings of the large airways in your body, which has led to coughing up that ball of slime. Still, you don't mix the weed with tobacco as many people in the UK do when they often make those huge baseball bat spliffs in their Rizla-based works of art. The question is smoking weed safe just because you don't mix it with tobacco? A 2021 study showed that 44% of Americans believe that smoking weed every day is better for you than smoking cigarettes every day. Of course, the amount you smoke matters. People generally smoke way more cigarettes than weed joints. Still, smoke from weed is still not great for you. Scientists say it may still cause lung cancer and emphysema. The problem is scientists haven't figured out just how bad weed smoke is for you. Not enough studies have been done, something we've seen 1,000 times while researching the show. One of the studies was conducted at the Ottawa Hospital in Canada. Researchers compared 150 lung scans from weed smokers, tobacco-only smokers, and non-smokers. The research reported that rates of emphysema, meaning an inflammation of the airway, were higher in weed smokers than they were in tobacco smokers. Still, we're talking about 75% compared to 70%. Only 5% of non-smokers had it. As for the big C, the Mayo Clinic says cannabis may cause lung cancer, but there's not enough evidence right now to say it definitely does. Then again, there's also evidence that the compounds in cannabis have, in some instances, been shown to kill certain types of cancer cells, including those found in the breast, lung, prostate, and skin cancers. Again,
Seems to be a lot of positives and positives. Seems to be a lot of positives and negatives of this. Like a lot of you, like a lot. It could kill cancer, cause cancer. I think in the near future that this will have especially if it's put to good use, it'll have a positive outcome for humanity. Exactly. Yeah.
we must reiterate that there have been some very positive results, but only with some people. So we definitely can't say cannabis, mainly CBD, will help someone beat cancer. One thing it seems to do for scores of people is help with their cancer pain, which is why more and more countries have given it the green light to be used in limited medical instances. On the other hand, you also have the genotoxic effects of oxidized hydrocarbons that occur when you burn cannabis, which has been said to create genetic changes that could potentially lead to a carcinogenic state. A paper published by the National Institutes of Health said weed joints deliver at least 4 times as much tar to the lungs as tobacco cigarettes of equivalent weight, explaining that it's because in these joints there are usually not any filters and people tend to hold the weed smoke in longer. In short, when you compare weed smokers or cigarette smokers with non-smokers, the incidence of respiratory problems is much higher. One study showed it was 1 in 3 compared to 1 in 12, but we still can't say for sure if cannabis causes cancer. In one study, a big one, out of 65,000 people, it seemed marijuana use might have had a negative effect on prostate cancer, but not any other of the major cancers. The participants were aged 15 to 49 only, so more studies looking at older people would have to be done, since cancer is more common in older folks. We're not going to tell you that regularly smoking weed doesn't cause cancer, but we're also not going to tell you it definitely can. What we will say is your month on weed is certainly not the riskiest thing you'll ever do in your life, but you are inhaling smoke, and while it might not be as carcinogenic as some news articles might suggest, it is very possible that this experience is damaging your lungs. As things stand, you now have smoked weed daily for 3 weeks. We don't think there'll be any substantial damage. If you smoked joints every day for years, well, your lungs will suffer. Just how much? We can't say. It gets even more confusing when you read about vaping weed. Vaporizer devices activate cannabinoids, but they don't heat the goodness to the point of combustion. You might read this and think, well, that's great, vape it is then. But then you read vaping articles such as this one from Johns Hopkins Medicine. Emerging data suggests links to chronic lung disease and asthma, as well as associations between dual use of e-cigarettes and smoking with cardiovascular disease. But that same article also said we still don't have a definitive answer as to how bad vaping is for your body. We do know that when you do vape, you also inhale harmful chemicals, and some doctors in the US have said they've seen more and more people coming in to see them with conditions that could very well be related to their vaping habit. You all probably know former smokers who now vape, and they look like steam trains most of the day. Still, no one vapes weed in such high quantities. You've now been smoking weed daily for almost the full month. Will it be hard to quit? Is weed addictive? Yet again, this question is not easy to answer. Not all substance addictions and withdrawals are the same. If you have a physical addiction to alcohol or benzodiazepines like Valium, etc., coming right off after a long time can actually be very dangerous. You might not only have seizures that can and do kill, but in terms of mental well-being, you might think you've been plunged into anxiety hell. And we do mean hell. This is related to the effect these drugs have on your GABA receptors. In layman's terms, if a substance makes you very relaxed, your brain might stop creating chemicals that usually make you chilled. So when you stop, the very opposite of relaxed happens to you. It's the same for people who stop taking opiates and become incredibly restless and depressed. But what about weed? Does that kick the poop out of you when your body no longer has it? Actually, with cannabis withdrawal, you're definitely not going to experience anything like we just mentioned, but there is something called marijuana use disorder. People have been known to become dependent on weed. Their body craves the psychological changes that weed's been giving to them. They can develop a tolerance, so they need more and more. Still, it's said only 10 to 20% of daily weed users will develop dependence. There will be some mild withdrawal symptoms when they stop, maybe lasting about 2 weeks. These might include cravings, irritability, decreased appetite, mood and sleep difficulties, restlessness, and other kinds of physical discomfort. A paper in the National Institutes of Drug Abuse in the U.S. stated, in 2015, about 4 million people in the United States met the diagnostic criteria for a marijuana use disorder. 138,000 voluntarily sought treatment for their marijuana use. With any psychoactive substance, there's no clear line you can cross as to how long and how much you can actually consume before developing dependency. Everyone is different. There are cases of people smoking weed for years and having zero problem stopping, or maybe just
What's up with this cutting of the audio, bro?
mild issues. Then you have people who smoked for shorter periods who feel pretty bad after stopping. But on the whole, in terms of withdrawal symptoms, weed is far, far less dangerous than many substances we use to change the way we feel. Weed withdrawal is a gazillion times safer.
It's not like it's meth or fucking heroin or whatever the fuck niggas use nowadays. It's not as bad as that. That shit will get you gone.
Than if you were a regular consumer of things like Xanax, Percocet, or Johnny Walker. Still, you should be aware that becoming dependent on weed is possible. Studies show that this is a disproportionately bigger problem for younger.
Hey man, you got that that JP? No, the JW. You got the JW? The Johnny Walker? Yeah, man, I'm feeling for that shit. Let me get some Johnny Walker. Like what? Oh man, whatever, bro. Whatever, homie.
Younger people. Okay, so your month is up. And to be honest, since you've taken your weed sensibly, you feel fine. You are aware of all the psychological dangers some people face with weed consumption, but it seems that for now you're not one of those people who react badly to it. That said, if you keep this up, there's a very real possibility you'll damage your lungs, and there's also a real possibility you'll develop a dependence. Still, since you feel better, you're sleeping well, you have less social anxiety, and your work hasn't been negatively affected, you think you'll carry on. Although just to be safe, you're going to limit your smoking to small doses just a few times a week. Many people don't even know why they smoke weed. They might tell you, the reasons? There are no reasons. Who needs reasons when you've got weed?
That
One
makes
person
total
interviewed in The
sense.
Guardian felt that way for
That's
40
like saying that's like saying smoking crystal meth. Why do I smoke? Why do I do it? I don't know. There's no reason, bro. That's got to be the dumbest shit I've ever heard of you. So you do something for no reason? What? Like, are y'all like what? Like, what is? Does that make sense to you? I'd rather not go in depth because I'm 30 minutes into this shit. But like, bro, doing shit for no reason, just especially if it has no. Never mind. Let me just.
40 plus years. She got to the point that she didn't even know if she enjoyed it anymore. She said in an interview, "I smoked to go to work, smoked to do the washing up, smoked for chill time." In the end, she said her lungs started to hurt and her gums regularly bled. She didn't know why she wanted it, but she craved it when she didn't have it. One day she realized she'd gone 2 days without weed and then just thought, okay, enough's enough. She craved it for sure, but with the help of meetings and counseling, she stopped completely. And guess what? She started dreaming again. That's something you noticed when you smoked for a month. You didn't dream. Many people don't regularly smoke weed because it interrupts the amount of time people spend in rapid eye movement or REM sleep, the time when most people dream. Dreaming was one of the big changes for her, but everyone is different where cannabis withdrawal is concerned. These are some comments made by people who quit after many years of daily smoking. "I just quit after 10 years as well. Just cold turkeyed it, no withdrawal symptoms. The withdrawals have not been fun. I've lost 4 pounds in 2 days because it's really hard to eat. Mentally, I feel really clear and happy. My boyfriend stopped smoking weed like 2-3 months ago, and I'm noticing that his behavior is different. He's more angry and not as sweet as he used to be." And this one. "I quit after about 6 years of smoking every day. It made me anxious and awkward in social situations. I would overanalyze things and think really weird or delusional thoughts. Forget about talking to girls, I couldn't handle it. Since I quit, all these things went away. As it said on the walls of the Temple of Apollo in ancient Greece, know thyself. With weed, you have to educate yourself and assess if it's good for your mental health while adding up the pros and cons as to how it'll affect your body and life in general. If you absolutely want to experience weed, we suggest wading in slowly rather than diving straight into the deep. It can be a mysterious ocean out there, and you never know what you might find. As we've told you many times today, scientists haven't yet plumbed the depths of all of Mary Jane, not entirely. For a more in-depth dive into the withdrawal effects of weed, check out What Happens to Your Body When You Stop Smoking Weed, or check
Nigga, that is 3 hours. Shit, that can be for another YouTube video. What the fuck? Maybe if I had a PC, then I'd be doing that shit. But my nigga, I'm on a Lenovo laptop that can barely even keep up with my schoolwork. Brother, we're not reacting to that shit. I'm sorry. I watch that. I watch it on my free time. But reacting wise, no. Okay. All right, the video, boys. Alright, yeah, guys. You guys gotta like the video.